ton,
I know.
a ton.
But isn't that the recommended amount for you? Okay. I just didn't see a water bottle next to you. Just gonna call you out on that.
I like that you're always looking out for us, Q. I appreciate that.
She's got big work to do.
Yes. Hi, Brent. Sorry, I didn't say hi to you when you came in before.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No worries. I know we're back streaming, correct, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So now we had a quick caucus to have some conversations around maybe some potential ideas, solutions, all that good stuff. Where are we at now? Are there any follow-up questions or ideas that want to be shared with the group?
Is that me? Am I up? Okay, sorry. So what we talked about is 5.5, 5.5 professional development, and then the other 8.5 would be teacher work days. So I'll put those numbers out, and then I'm happy to explain how we came to those numbers. So we talked about agreeing with what you were saying, Q, that, excuse me, end of the year, just a work day, because you're cleaning up, packing up your classroom, whatever it is. And then we also talked about the end of marking periods being as important time needed for teachers. Trimesters for elementary, those are some of those report cards are really heavy lifts, now that I've seen many of them. And then we have, this is where it gets a little sticky, and I forgot to say this in the caucus. There's 4 marking periods for middle school because they are on quarters. And while high school posts 4 times, like the heavy duty ones are the ends of each semester. So that's really the critical ones. So what we were thinking is 3, and that accommodates the elementary, that accommodates the high school, and that 75% accommodates the middle school. So 3 throughout the year, the 1 at the very end. And then we would also like to talk about the 4 days at the beginning, that the arrangement isn't really critical, but if we could have half of those 4 days, so 2 of those 4 days as reserved for teacher, do what you need to do in your classrooms with your copies and decorating and whatever it needs to be, whether that's, 4 half days per building, or if it's 2 PD days, 2 full PD and 2 full teacher work days. I think that's up for grabs as far as what the building and the school needs. So that's where we came up with 8.5 for teachers and then 5.5 for professional development. And that's about a 40-60 split percentage wise.
So I'm almost following you. So I'm going to recap and help me figure out where my math is wrong. So 1 day at the end of the year for cleanup, 3 days for grades throughout the year, which we know the trimesters for elementaries, because those report cards are heavy lifts. And then we know that the semester is, especially for high school and middle school, they just grade all the time in their middle school.
You're right, my math is off.
You're what?
My math is off, I think. I'm off by a day.
So that gives me, in the 2 days start a year, that gives me 6 days that you for sure wouldn't want any PD on. So where's the other 2.5? Or is that sprinkled throughout the year? Or?
Oh, I'm fine. The other big component is that the other Friday work days, we would like it to be half professional and half teacher time. That should be where the rest of it comes from, but let me double check my math.
Yeah, but count the numbers on that, because I totally agree on those other Fridays, half PD, half. That makes sense to me. Let's see if we've got 6. That makes sense, because I see, because there'd be 5 days left.
3.5.
14 take away 6 is 8.
And half of those eight would be,
I know, I feel like our numbers are still off a little bit. Emily's looking concerned for our math abilities. I really hope our board members are not watching tonight.
I'm just trying to keep track as well. I mean, I always double check any math I do. So
Yeah.
So I'm coming up. Excuse me. I think I made it sound like one more than I think we need. So let's go with elementary talk.
Okay.
Since we landed on 3, let's go with the trimester discussion.
Okay.
It'll apply to all though. So there would be 4 grading periods, FOR, not the number 4. October, March, and June. So that would be 3 full teacher workdays for the grading periods. And then 2 in August. Okay, I think my numbers are right.
Okay. That gets us to 5.
Okay, so the remaining Fridays, there should be 7 of them. Is that right?
No, now
I got 7.
so I've got 3 for grading periods, 2 for the start of the year. That gets me to 5. 1 for the end of the year. That gets me to 6.
No. One of the grading periods and the end of the year are the same thing.
Oh, right. So there's not, okay, so then that gets us to 5.
I said that way and that was confusing. I apologize.
That makes sense. Okay, got it. So we've got 5 days so far that we are like, let's make these sacred.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that leaves 7 other months with a Friday workday. And so half of those would be the 3.5 days. So the 5 whole days plus a total of 3.5 for the other 7 Friday workdays.
Okay.
Should I say that a different way?
No, I think I'm following you. So I'm going to process out loud.
Okay.
We're getting close, and know too that wherever we're like, I kind of see this window, right? Just so everyone hears, I'd really love the opportunity to bring some of this thinking back to the principals who I know are like tasked with, how are we going to schedule our time and look at data and bring in the professional learning that we need. In general, I'm not a ton worried because I do feel like folks have done an amazing job this last year, but I want to make sure I'm able to do that before we land on a final number. I like the idea of the time for doing grades because that is a heavy lift, especially at the elementary. I know it's a little different at middle school and high school, but yet it's still an important piece. I like the idea and totally agree with the last day, which is also a grading day, needs to be a cleanup day, like don't touch it. And in a way, we're probably getting overly detailed because our contract language will say the number of days, not the actual date. But I like how we're thinking through it. I just want to clarify that for folks who are probably listening. Little bit of anxiety, and this maybe is where it does or doesn't matter. So October 7th or the October Friday as a day at the end of the try for elementary and a day for grading. Yes, we need that. And I'm like, eek, that's also a super prime time to make sure we're supporting with the professional learning. To me, I would want a shared leadership team to talk through that so they figure out what makes sense. Because I think with the overall number of days that we land on, principals and shared leadership teams and the school teams can decide how to slice and dice those. So yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say? Oh, nothing. Okay. Then my other thing, August, this is one that gave me a little bit of angst earlier today because I was thinking through it and I'm like, I agree that it needs to be about half and half, right? Like half with folks engaged in those start of the year, hopefully not all the fire hosing of all the rules and regulations like we need to not be doing that. We need to be reading those ahead of time and instead the days together should be really interesting experiences. And people need time to set up their rooms and dig into the modules for EL, all the stuff we already know, right? Like that's a heavy lift. And sometimes I worry, especially our elementary folks, they just like show up end of July anyway, and they're just there. Polly will be redoing all of her cabinets and tucking everything away. So I acknowledge all that. My worry about August, and I'm not sure what to do about it yet, I need to figure this out, is we're really excited to do some district-wide PD, and I may be getting a little too specific, but it'll help me process a little, and then I can take it back to my leaders. I've coined the term Edupalooza. I don't know if I stole that from someone or not, but we have a partnership with Cottonwood Institute, which is like Outward Bound, and they're going to help lead some immersive experiences up at Rocky Mountain Village. We've not planned out details yet, but and that would be actually available to every single educator in the district. So our certified folks would be on contract already. I think we're thinking about the 16th and the 17th, and then we would offer to pay anyone who's not on contract through ESSER funds, because this would be really an immersive kick off the year right around who are we as a district. When I think about that, I'm like, awesome, that's the 16th, 17th. I need to push my thinking on maybe that's the 16th. And I'm going to say this out loud. I'm probably going to freak out the whole district right now because we've not talked about this out loud, but oh well, I'll just put it out there. We were excited to invite people to sleep over at Rocky Mountain Village. Brent, cover your ears, separate cabins and tents, and do like barbecue, like fun stuff the night of the 16th, and then do some more experiences on the 17th. Maybe we only do that the morning of the 17th, because I know we've got to have time for principals to be able to also bring their staff together. Again, not to fire hose them, but to give them some, give them time to work through, like, what's our dress code, all that stuff that we know we talk about. So that I need to figure out what that would look like. That's my only anxiety around those 4 days, but conceptually, I agree that it really needs to be 50-50 because people need time in their rooms. So with that said, where I think we're at is CCCEA is kind of put a proposal on the table and said, we'd like to propose 5.5 days for PD, right? Okay. And then the rest, the 8.5, are we adding that correctly? Because 14 days total. Okay. I'm feeling anxious about my math in this live venue. Okay. So, and I came out of the gate with 7, knowing that it's probably not realistic with that last day in the beginning. My proposal would be 6 days. But now I feel like I'm like passing numbers across. What I really want to do, you guys, is talk with my leaders and see what's realistic. Let's make it work for everyone. So if you guys are okay with it, I'd say let's pause the conversation. I hear you around the 5.5. I'd like to get to 6, but we'll figure something out within that window. Let me talk to principals and maybe we can nail it on the 2nd, May 2nd. We're pretty close. What do you guys think? Okay.
Thumbs up. My 2 favorite things.
What? Oh,
I said thumbs up and head nods. My 2 favorite things. All right.
I'm a little concerned that I just rolled Edupalooza before it's even planned and talked about overnights, because I don't know how we're going to make it all work, but it's going to be super fun. And Brent and Emily, you guys are invited. Think bonfires. It's not on school grounds. It's going to be great. Brent just got really nervous. It's going to be so fun. Hiking, disc golf, learning, bonding.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay, no one's hung up yet, so this is good.
I'm in.
I would like an invitation. That sounds lovely.
Yes, Jackie, you should come up. We're actually really excited about it, not to go off on this too much, but it is an important part of our model, right? Like getting kids outside, having learning experiences that are authentic and relevant and connected to our community. That's exactly the partnership we have with Rocky Mountain Village. And whether it's Cottonwood or Outward Bound or Knowles or whoever it is, they're going to help us in this experience so we can bring it back to our kids. You can't you can't teach differently if you haven't learned differently. And most of us went to school when it was pretty traditional. And we're like, hey, teach differently, even though you've never experienced that before. We've got to support people with that immersive learning experience. That's what it's about on the 16th and 17th. Okay.
All right, any follow-up on that at this point? All right. The next thing we had on our agenda was the continued conversation or conversation, let's just put it that way, around compensation for classifieds. I'm sorry, certifieds. Too many C's. Is that a good spot for us to jump into? Good nods. All right. Who wants to get us started on that?
I can kind of start. Well, so I have the analysis based on what Jill and Polly have asked me to send. Yep, but we want to hear, Karen can jump in, but.
Like, don't wait, we have to frame it. Sorry, Holly. Holly's brain never stops because she's that amazing. I didn't mean to like shut you down. I was just thinking it might be helpful to hear the request, hear the thinking behind it, and hear, I think there were some comps and such. And then I think both Holly and I had a couple questions around the actual request. So I'd love to start there, if that's okay.
Some of the comps we've already shared. Do you want me to go over those again, Q?
No, we've got those. I didn't know if you guys were getting other stuff or not. I might have made that up in my head.
I have a few things. I'm really bad. It's been so long since I've had to share a screen. I don't know how to do it. But one of the things we did recently, because we want to make it clear that we are bargaining for certified and classified employees. I know it's sometimes something that we do across the board, but from our research and from the comps we've pulled, it seems that the discrepancy between like a teacher salary and an admin salary is greater in Clear Creek than in the other districts that we constantly compare to. And I can share that if somebody would just, or Jill, you have it. So could maybe Jill share it?
Just on the bottom, the little green arrow, if you click on that, and then it should open up all your open tabs. You should be able to do it that way, or unless Jill has it.
Jill does have it.
I have it. I don't have it open, but I will see if I can grab it real quick. I'll read it, Molly.
So that was one thing we wanted to start with, because I think that will change the cost to the district. There are only 3 districts that we pull comps from that are near Denver that we've all agreed, I mean, we've used the same districts for a long time now, or since we started bargaining, that pay under, that pay under $37,709 as starting salaries. And of those districts, find it here, their principal salaries are considerably less too. So I don't know how much you need me to go on and on about that. I can walk you through it. For example, let me find it. So it's Platt, Park, and Clear Creek that pay less than $38,000 as a starting salary, or $39,000, sorry. And when you look at
I think I have it. I think I have it, Polly. I think I can share. It's got that blue strip across it in the middle. Is that the right one?
There's that one and the one that I showed last night, which was from the CDE averages. So both of those. So
I think
yes,
I have the CD.
let's start with this one though.
Okay.
Can you start at the top so we can see what they're, because you'll be the scroller, right? Since you're sharing it.
Yep.
Thanks, Jill.
Here we go.
I just haven't had to share my screen since I had to teach remotely last Christmas. So, couldn't last. So if you,
I
Jill, do you
see
need to
two.
be- Do you need to be made a co-host to share?
I'm sorry. There's two,
Made a co-host.
maybe. I'm just trying to decide which one. I got two emails from you last night, Polly, and I'm trying to decide which one.
it's the one.
Okay. Oh, I think you're on this one with me. So this must be the right one. Okay. This is good. All right, here we go.
Oh, I see share screen. Oh, I could have done it. Okay. All right.
All right, now I can't see any of you. So.
Sure. So, if you know, this number actually 37, I think I copied it wrong. I think it should be 38, but these are the districts at the top that are paying less than 30,000 that we have identified. And our goal is to not be under 40,000 as a starting salary. It's really not a very livable wage. It's not a very professional wage. I don't think any of us would send our children to college and hope that they get out and make $37,000 or 38. Anyway, those are the three that we wanted to look at. And we also looked, I went to the CDE and I just put up the averages for principals and for teachers. They do not have a section for our classified. I know we're not talking about classified right now, but that is one reason the classified are not in there. And so you can see the numbers there, Clear Creek average. Oh, I actually didn't want the one with superintendent on it, but here, I'm gonna share it. Jill, you can take that one off. I'm gonna go, I know how to do it now, I think. I'm sorry, it's gonna take a second, I think. I'll just do the one. Because I don't think, you know, superintendents in big districts are so, you know, there's more than one, there's probably lots of them, and superintendents in smaller districts, there's only one. So it just didn't seem. So do I guess I hit what I want to share, right?
Yeah, once you hit the green share button, it should pop up all your maybe open tabs or open windows you have. Looks like you're starting to share something.
No, this is not the right one. All right. So then I X out of this one. I hope I don't X out of my meeting.
No, that'll close out all your open tabs are on the very top.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, leave. Okay, stop sharing. There we go. One more time. Did I close? I think I closed it out of all of my. Oh my goodness. Give me a minute. I'll pull it back up. I'm so sorry. Now I've really done it, but I'll get back to it. Here we go. And everything's really slow now, so maybe I'll take my video off.
While you're trying to figure this out, Polly.
I'm almost there. I'm there. I'm so sorry, but go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to share too the inside track information that I have from Englewood. So they had a committee that completely restructured their salary schedule this year. And I have it. So it's a collaborative committee. They haven't TA'd it yet, but they expect to. And so if folks would like to see what that will look like when they approve it, I can show that. Let's see. So it's a little blurry. It's a little blurry on my screen too, because it's from a PowerPoint. But as you can see, they now they will, once they approve this salary schedule, start at 48,705 and top out at 93,856. And then they also made a philosophical decision to have 20 steps for every lane instead of graduating out their lanes, which is an unusual thing to do. But they did decide to do that. And so just wanted to share the most updated comp that we have from Englewood, because they did a huge restructure to their system this year.
Great, thanks. I do think I'm ready. So share my screen. Did it work? Can you see it?
It says you started, but it hasn't. Oh, there it goes.
Okay. So if you look at Clear Creek, we have, and I guess I still have, you know what, it's fine. I didn't go on and on with the superintendents, and we don't need to look at that. But if you look at the average principal salaries and the teacher salaries in the first three areas, Clear Creek, Platte, and Park, those are all the averages from the CDE. And if you look at the ratio average of principal to average teacher salary, which is under E right here, you see that Clear Creek is one of the higher, it is the highest one. I also put in the teacher turnover rate because we're really interested in keeping our teachers. And that's been a goal for us for quite a few years. And granted, this is the information I can get from CDE. It's from 2021. But it is one of the reasons we feel that we should not be necessarily putting across the board increases. We also are really feeling like, I work with a teacher who is my age, who came to our district 4 years ago and started with 5 years of experience. Teachers and ES. Go ahead, Jackie.
No, I just want to be up next. Please finish your thought.
We are not able to negotiate our own salaries. I'm very aware that our new principal coming in, who I'm very excited about, we were touch and go. Could we meet her salary? So her requirements. So there are people in our district who can negotiate what they get paid for, and there are people in our district who are tied to a salary schedule. So moving on from that, you can see down below, I don't understand Mapleton's, and I asked Jackie about it. I don't know why their turnover rate would be so high, because they're such a, they pay well. But it does seem that pay and turnover rate are very correlated. And it does seem that our average principal salaries compared to our average teacher salaries are a bit higher. The discrepancy is higher. And then I also put in there Clear Creek with a 15% increase for teachers and no increase for administrators. And I spelled administrators wrong, but I'm seeing. And that would bring it back to perhaps more in line with the rest of the districts in terms of the discrepancy between teacher and admin pay. So that's what I have.
Yeah, and so I think, Polly, what we've talked about as a team is wanting for the district to be competitive, right? And that's a big part of it, is wanting to reduce turnover by being competitive. And the reason why we looked at this is because it feels to us, it looks to us from the numbers that administrator salaries in Clear Creek are competitive, and y'all are doing great in that area. And when we received the estimate from Holly about what it looked like, it included all of the administration in that estimate. And so we wanted to talk about, one, that we don't bargain for what that is, and that's entirely up to you. And that, we think that there should be different levels of compensation increases for different job categories, classified, certified, administrative, because of where they fall in terms of competitiveness.
Any questions, points of clarification on what Polly and Jackie have been discussing at this point?
I have some questions. So will you remind us, what's your ask?
We are asking for a 15% increase for our classified staff or certified.
Okay.
And that
So-
would bring the reason for that, our reasoning with that is that it would bring our beginning salary for a teacher with a BA to just under 45. And I have that I shared with the board a month ago, that I can also stop sharing this screen and share that. We do feel pretty strongly that in Clear Creek, we've sort of followed this path where we wait to see what other districts are doing before we do what probably we should do or try to do, which is make sure that incoming teachers and teachers throughout their career feel that they can stay in, come to Clear Creek and stay here, not come here and then leave in 3 years. Which it's a trend when we don't offer competitive pay. When a teacher sees that they can make $12,000 more somewhere else, it's hard for them to stay. So, and we're a bit out, like we're a drive for the teachers that come up from Lakewood and places like that. So that's our ask. And it would be across all pay or all levels. And our reasoning is because we feel that I'm going to stop sharing this one and share the other, share my other screen, which is.
So while you're pulling that up, I'm gonna like paraphrase and see. So, and Jackie, you're spot on. You guys bargain or negotiate for certified. But if I'm following the data that you're sharing, you're asking us to not make any increases for our principals or admin, but you've got the ratio on there, principals to teachers.
I don't think that we're asking you not to, but if it's impossible to find the money, we feel like there is a need for those certified staff. And as Jackie said, it seems like we're offering competitive salaries to our admin. So in a perfect world, I would love to see everybody have what they want or need. Yes, I feel like, if you need a rationale for it, that is what I was providing. I am not saying that any educator doesn't deserve a raise. That's not my point. And here is not coming. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I will share this one. Which I shared with the board, and it just looks at what other districts are doing. And I'm not,
Is it the one that's got the comps?
Mhm.
Okay. So while you're bringing that up, I'll say a few things, but I don't know if I've got more questions or not. So I think what I'm hearing is desired or a request for 15% for everyone in the certified job group and a suggestion to not give administrators any raise. And the data compares the salary of principals to teachers. So the first thing that pops into my head is, well, I've got 3 principals. And if I were to even entertain that notion of not giving them a raise, and I'll come back to that, I don't believe the cost savings from that would even get us close to scratching the surface of the 15%. I appreciate the comparison, and I see where you're going with that, and Holly can correct me if I'm wrong, the dollars that would be saved by me looking Gould and Lorraine and TJ in the eyes, although TJ's new, she won't be, so it's those 2. I'd be looking at Lorraine and Gould and saying, I'm not going to give you guys a raise so we can pay for our teacher raises. I couldn't do that ethically. And I know you guys couldn't either. But the second piece is you guys, it would barely even, it wouldn't help us enough. So I want to be thoughtful about that. If I were to expand that and say, okay, all administrators in the district, again, we don't have that many. Many of them, I feel like a broken record sometimes, but many of them are grant funded. Because when the request came in, and Holly will share some numbers in a minute, we immediately started thinking, well, what's possible? What can we do? We don't disagree at all. I think all of us have a shared belief that we have got to increase compensation and would love our starting salaries to be higher. I'll grab your question in a second, Jackie, otherwise I'll lose my train of thought. A couple other pieces, because we have such a small number of principals, any change to a person and then their salary, I think makes that ratio different. For example, Marcia retired, Lorraine came in. So probably that data is based on, if you've got 3, and it could change either way, right? So you've got Marcia, who had been with the district a super long time, probably at a very high salary. And now I'm uncomfortable because I'm talking to specific people, but I guess I want that to be elevated as well. That people with only 3 principals, your ratio changes as salaries change. I'll pause for a minute. Yeah.
I can let Jill and Jackie go, but I said it.
Yeah,
I said
I've got
once,
my hand.
it is not my goal to say that I anticipate the district will be having difficulty finding money. And this is one of our questions or one of our findings, that perhaps our certified schedule needs to move up more than perhaps other employee groups. Okay, I'm not in charge of, anyway, I'm not suggesting you go to anybody and tell them they're not going to have an increase. But I am suggesting that it might be more appropriate to give employee groups significantly more.
All right, I know Jill, thank you for waiting. I was trying to get Jill and Jackie.
Okay. Yeah, just reiterating what Polly just said. Please, I don't want anyone to walk away to think that we're saying don't give certain people raises. No, I would like you said, Q, I would like everyone to be paid what they're worth in this district, and that we need to work on salaries for everyone. We were trying to establish the fact that we have competitive, it appears by comps that we have competitive salaries for administrators and not as competitive salaries for our certified staff. And it's not our job to figure out where the money comes from, but as a collaborative body, I think it's helpful to frame some of those ideas if necessary. I think evaluating where the salary increases go, I think it's important to look at that particularly this year, if we really want to retain educators, because that is not where we have competitive salaries. And I think, Jackie, maybe you were chiming in on this. I think we ran some numbers. Is that where you were going to go?
Well, yeah, I was going to reiterate too that we have absolutely no power over, what is given to administrators. And it was more that we were just, it was just our analysis, right, to look at how things were, because we have no ability to request any level of increase or no increase for the administration. And so, we got the cost analysis from y'all, from Holly, and even just taking out the employees in that spreadsheet who were coded as administrators brought down the cost estimate by almost $300,000. Just doing that, just deleting them out of it. And so, and I know that we've looked at it and run our numbers too, because we do our stuff a little differently. And thank you so much, Holly. This spreadsheet was incredibly helpful. As much as my brain doesn't work well with spreadsheets, this was really great. But it does, if we look at requesting a significant increase for educators, for teachers, for certified staff, when we include administrators in the cost estimate, it jumps up really high. And so we were just trying to clearly make the point that it's important to prioritize.
Have anything they'd like to discuss on this topic?
Yeah, I'm going to try to be careful because we're such a small district. It's so easy to immediately connect it to people, and I want to be thoughtful about that. So I do want to focus on the ask of certified. I'm not comfortable not giving a job group an increase or even thinking about it differently at this point. My rationale being, as I think about specific people who have recently joined us as administrators, or even at the beginning of my tenure here, the majority of them took significant pay cuts to come to Clear Creek, myself included. And so maybe it doesn't matter, but since we're talking about admin salaries again, without naming people, I am so grateful for the folks that we have who are leading. And I know you guys are as well, because I hear really positive feedback about the people we've hired. And so I believe in all my heart that we all acknowledge that. I know it's tricky when you're comparing job groups and salaries. I remember Cindy Stevenson, Jeffco, who at one point said during budget cuts, when there's a drought, which we're not in, but this applies when there's a drought, the animals look at each other differently around the watering hole. I never want to be in that mindset. I want all of our educators, our leaders included, to feel valued, that they're here. I'm not against in the future doing some analysis of the different salary schedules. We did that work initially with, I think it was Teresa, I can't remember how to say her name. Still have all that data. I think you guys have it as well. And that was an interesting beginning, because I love how we selected a lot of the same districts that I think you guys showed on the comps. That felt really, really good. Thank you for pulling some of those comps. And what we found was that there were different job groups that in comparison were higher, within classified, and when we saw that, I think we all went, we don't like what this is saying, because anecdotally, it felt awkward, especially around some of the teacher salaries. So that could be future work that doesn't need to be part of this conversation here. The way I really want to think about this is, what can we do? I'll just be blunt. What's the most that we can do and be financially viable when we're talking certified salaries? It's my worry to think about how can we find funds to do that, right? But I can't do it on the backs of our administrators. I'm curious about the savings of the 300,000. Like, it's like part of me wants to know, like, how did you figure that out? I don't know that I want to go there right now. Maybe that's something Jackie and Holly or Jill and Holly could talk about offline, because I'm curious about that. But I only want to talk certified here. And in terms of the increase, similar, I think, I think all of our folks are thinking, we're all trying to figure out how to pay, right? How do we pay? How do we increase salaries? We know we want to do that. We know it's the right thing. I would love to be at 40 or above. I'm just going to say it. I don't know what that sweet spot is that we can afford. We thought about it in another way, like, what's it going to cost us? And would we have to do cuts in order to get there? And so Holly had queued those up. Now, I want to be super thoughtful. I am not advocating at all that we would make cuts. We've been very fortunate to, through natural retirements and resignations and moving people around, we've done really hard work along those lines. But it is important to think about what is the overall cost. And we tried to look at that in terms of cuts across all job groups. I think before our team shares some data and goes a little bit deeper, after we get Jackie's question, I'd love to maybe do a quick caucus with my team.
Yeah, I have Jackie's hand is up, and I was watching the clock as well. I wanted to make sure we have time to talk about classifieds today. I wanted to get this as much information out as possible around the certified. But Jackie, what did you want to add? And then we can circle back to your caucus question idea.
I mean, I just want to emphasize again that we are not making any specific requests for what you do with Administrator Cola. I think we all agree that all educators are not paid enough, no matter what chair they sit in. We've done some other comparisons around the cost of housing in any of these districts that we're talking about as well. And when we're talking about these issues, right, we're talking about folks who are making less than $40,000 a year and folks who are making 70, 80, 90, right? And I think that that's fair. That's fair to have that conversation when we're here to talk about teachers who can't afford to live in Clear Creek. And it is not to denigrate or devalue anyone in a system that is horribly underfunded, criminally underfunded, I would say. But what we want to focus on is making sure that the teachers and classified folks in Clear Creek who work and make our schools run can actually afford to live here. Here, I don't live here. I'm not there right now. There, in your beautiful place with your wonderful schools, right? And your awesome new expeditionary learning program. And I think if we dig into the numbers, we will see that it is affordable, that we can get there.
Totally agree. I want people to live up here. And I'm almost done, Emily, I promise.
I just saw Polly put her hand up. I didn't want to miss.
Oh, sorry. Polly, what'd you say? Holly or Polly?
Oh, Polly.
Polly, go ahead, and then I'll say what I was going to say.
I also think when we are looking at different groups, that at some point, everybody getting the same thing. I mean, certainly in my classroom, not everybody gets the same thing. Yeah, I think we need to look at where we're having problems, and teacher retention continues to be an issue. It's better, I agree, and I'm really grateful for it. But there are districts where not everybody gets the same thing. Last year, Gilpin increased their teacher salaries by $5,000 and admin did not, because it was appropriate. So I want to be mindful, especially since we only have so much and we can't just put it everywhere. I think we need to think about that. And I agree with Jackie's point that the difference between, a $38,000 salary and $100,000 salary are very different. So I just want to make sure that we are really mindful of how we're spending our money, because our educators are making less than $39,000 a year. And when they start.
And yes, agree, that needs to go up. I mean, if we're going to keep comparing the two, then I feel like I've got to also put out and remind us number of days worked in the contract year. Our folks who are, and you guys know that, but I'm going to say it for everyone listening, our folks who are in admin jobs are, many of them are year round, myself included. When you really get down to how that factors into daily rate and hourly rate, it's, on all accounts, it's criminal. Like it can be shocking to say, someone who makes 90 versus someone who makes 40, they're really different, but the number of work days are different. And so we're comparing apples to oranges in a way. Both are incredibly valued. Both deserve a living wage. Both deserve the ability to live in our beautiful county. I don't disagree with any of that. My point here is that we're negotiating or bargaining for certified. And the more we point to other job groups and say they're overpaid or they're proportionally paid too much, or I'm maybe missing the point that you guys are making. If you're trying to help us find where those dollars are, and it sounds still like it's potentially on the backs of our administrators, then we've got to, then I'm going to come right back and say they work more days, they work more hours. The job responsibility, like it feels like we're comparing apples to oranges. Instead, what I'd rather do is really focus on how do we get to a reasonable number that will increase our teacher salaries, because absolutely we need to do that. I couldn't agree more. And in terms of the workforce housing celebrations there, we are, I don't want to jinx it, but we are soon, I won't say the date, soon to close on the development that'll go on the football field that we've worked so hard to negotiate employee housing as part of that. Props to Carla Cole, props to Stephanie Copeland, props to Esther, props to Brent and Mitch and everyone who made this happen. We're going to have incredibly affordable housing for our employees because of the hard work they've done. And talking on a turn a little, but fingers crossed, there's a teeny tiny chance we might be able to get some additional 1-bedrooms on top of our transportation maintenance facility. So we're working hard in terms of all those other pieces because we know the dollars will never go far enough in our beautiful county. And that's part of the reason behind the 4-day week as well. The recruitment and retention piece, all those things factor in. I don't disagree. We've got to increase salaries, but we're trying to look at it holistically and create the best place for people to work.
The 4-day week benefits not just teachers. And I do think that teachers probably dream of being homeowners and not living in 1-bedroom apartments. I'm not unthankful for that, but I think that's a very temporary sort of enticement or piece of help for an educator. But I do think we asked for a caucus, so.
Yeah, we should probably do that.
Yeah, how much time would you, it's 5:51.
I don't know.
Think we still have to get to classifieds. I know we only have the compensation conversation for them, but of course we always know that takes time. So, but regarding a caucus, how much time would folks need?
Well, maybe the first question, and Jackie and whoever we might weigh in, when do we want to shift over to classified?
I think that's part of why this is hard, right? Is
Yeah.
like it's the same conversation. We're just talking about different people. And so, and we're talking about how much things cost. And, I think right now, you asked us what we asked for, and we told you at what point, do we expect a more concrete response?
I think she's asking what point tonight do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I hear that.
Place?
But before we shift over to classified, I think it's important for us to get a sense of where we are in this process.
Well,
And
I think
so
it-
that will help
I
me
think it-
determine if when it makes sense to switch over to classified.
I think it impacts how long we're going to caucus. That's why she's asking right now. So, because I think I was on YouTube for the last couple minutes of the meeting, but did we agree to go half and half last time? So would that be it? Like already we should have gone over to classified, or?
Yes.
What about this, you guys? I'm going to suggest this. What if we caucus until 10 after 6? We come back, we talk for about 5 more minutes, and then at 6:15, we switch over to classified.
That work for folks?
Sure.
Okay, I'll do another Google Meet.
You said how many minutes in the caucus?
I had to
Until-
make a
until
count on my
6:10.
fingers, till 6:10.
6:10. Thank you.
Whoever that
Okay,
is.
I had just missed it.
Yeah.
Folks who are watching on YouTube, same thing as before. If you were watching before, we're going to turn off the live stream and it will create a new live stream when we come back at 6:10.